This one might be a long video because I am reviewing this. It is Atlantis Attacks, and it is a big hardcover omnibus collecting the entire 1989 crossover from Marvel. The very first thing I thought whenever I pick this up, the first thing I always think is how much I really cannot stand Alex Ross. And the good thing is, this cover is not by him, so it's good. But one of the problems with it is, Marvel have this tendency when they get a new cover done for a collected edition, they always like to put 4 Captain America and Iron Man up front. But the problem here is that Captain America and Iron Man, they're not that important to this story, they're barely in it. They're like, it should really be for The Thing, Kazar and Doctor Strange. There is Seaman there. He's not really in the story that much either, but he is a Seaman from Atlantis, so I think that's why they put him on. And there's the main baddie. He is called Gore, and there's her. She's a baddie as well, but she is, look at her, she is beautiful. I fancy her a lot. And first thing I do, I'll take off the dust jacket, because like I always say, these look tremendous without it on. It's nice and shiny and it's embossed and you can feel it and stuff. It's lovely. The first criticism of the story though, it's called Atlantis Attacks. So you think this is going to be a story about the Seamen from Atlantis attacking the surface world. And that is an idea in it, but that is like that's like a subplot. That is like Act 2. The main plot of this one is that there is this baddie, he is called Gore, and he is trying to summon an evil serpent god to Earth. And to do this, he has got 7 brides for the serpent god. We have got there, that is the whore from the Excellent Men. I mean, she's meant to be married to Sightless, but first chance she gets, of course, she's going to want to shag a serpent god. Then we have got Invisible Woman from Fantastic Force. Then we've got a Smurf lady. There's She-Hulk there, but she has forgotten to put on her shoes. There is Storms from the Excellent Men's, Charlotte Witch, and this one is Andaga from Cloak and Dagger. And on the next page, look, we have got the Serpent Crown there. That is a hat that if you put it on your head, then you are under the control of the evil serpent god. So if it is a bit cold outside and you want to put something on top of your head to keep yourself warm, do not put this on your head or you will be possessed by an evil serpent god. And the story, it starts off with an issue of the Silver Surfman, and this one is about reintroducing Gore. What is happening is the Silver Surfman, he is flying through space like the Silver Surfman does, and then he finds some weird cosmic gas, and he accidentally awakens Gore from the cosmic gas. And we get a bit of backstory here about how Gore, he tried to become a god, but to defeat him, he got disintegrated in the cosmic gas, and now he's back. So him and the Silver Surfman, they have a fight, and it's a good little fight for a few pages. But what happens is, Gore, he sees no point in having a fight, so he just decides to leave and go to Earth. And this is where the Silver Surfman, he goes, oh well, it is Earth's problem now, and he just turns his back and flies away, which is quite a bad characterization of the Silver Surfman. And as it will turn out later in the story, the Silver Surfman would be very useful. On Earth, Gore, he goes to Atlantis, home of the Seamen, and there we meet the beautiful woman. I mean, she is lovely. I really fancy her. I mean, gorgeous. And they team up and they decide that they are going to bring the evil serpent god to Earth. And to do this, they are going to make a big serpent crown to summon him from his home dimension. And then we have this bit here with all the magicians in the Marvel Universe. They're reacting to it. They can sense something going on. I like it when comics do this, where it like shows the Marvel Universe reacting to events. Doctor Strange, he senses something's going on. He's like, oh, what's going on? And here we have got a Native American. She senses something going on. She's like, oh, what's going on? Sorry, actually, I called her a Native American. I don't think you're meant to call them that anymore. I think it's like the first Americans or something like that. And then we have got the next issue, which is an Iron Man issue, and this one isn't very good. we start off, most of the things start off with 3 or 4 pages of the baddies, which sometimes progress the plot a little, and here we learn that what they're going to do is, they're convincing the seamen from Atlantis to go to war with the surface world, and the idea is that all the death in the war that follows, they can be sacrifices to the evil serpent god. But the seamen who are going to war, they don't realise this, they think they're just like going to war to win. And what follows is this pretty generic Iron Man story where he teams up with the Seaman and they fight a Hydra submarine, Hydra boat, sorry. And it's just a fairly routine Iron Man team up. There's loads of Iron Men there. Oh, I wonder which one's the real one. I'd imagine the one in the centre because that is how they visually tell a story like that. And what happens is the Hydra boat, it explodes, and we're led to believe that Seaman died in the explosion. And of course, the death of Seaman means that now there is no one to lead the Seamen, so that this guy, he could take over as ruler of the Seamen and lead them into the war. Then we have got this issue of Avengers. It's just a couple of pages. It's like a subplot from an issue. It's like a little scene. Captain America, they're the best superhero in the world of all time. He's talking to Katy Perry. I actually quite fancy her as well. And then in comes this fella. He is the original Human Torch. And he used to be Captain America's friend. So this is like the first time they've seen each other in a while. And they're happy. And then what happens is Iron Man comes in and he goes, "Oh no, Seaman is dead." And then we're on to this. This is a Hulk story that was in Marvel Comics Presents. Now, what Marvel Comics Presents was, it was an anthology title of 8-page stories, and they were all pretty much rubbish. They were inventory stories, they were fillers, they had no use whatsoever. And this one is no exception. The Hulk, he goes to SeaWorld, and there is a whale that is angry, and it turns out the whale was under the control of one of the seamen. Absolutely nothing of any value in this story. Then we have got this one. I think this comes from an issue of Avengers Spotlight. But I also think this story is placed in the wrong part of the book. This should be later on, because they're already at war with the Seamen. This one, it stars this Avenger. She is quite a minor Avenger. Kurt Busey calls her Annoying Christian, so that's what I'm going to call her. She finds some seamen and they are stranded in the desert and they are really hot, they're dehydrated and they need water to survive because they are seamen. And ironically, this one, she controls fire, so she is like the one Avenger they probably don't want to meet. But there we get a bit of backstory about the war, and we have a kind of a classic Marvel dilemma where the superhero has to like face whether or not she can help these people out, because she knows if she helps them out they'll just probably go back to the sea and come back to fight against the surface world. But of course she is a superhero, so she takes them back to the sea, and we get a little bit of humour here where they're like, oh, should we actually honour our promise not to attack again? Nah. And this is a decent little story to spotlight this like C-list Avenger, the Annoying Christian. So it's welcome, this one. I like it. It's relevant to the main story as well because it's got the seamen attacking. I just think it is a bit too early in the book. I think it should probably be about somewhere like there. The next story, oh fucking hell, this is Excellent Men by Christopher Clairvoyant. It is fucking hands down the worst book in the entire thing. I'm skipping it. I don't want to look at it. It's disgusting. I hate it. It's filth. Nothing important happens in it anyway. Then we're on to Spider-Man. This is Spider-Man teaming up with She-Hulk to fight the Abomination. The Abomination is under the control of Gore and Pretty Woman. And this one is notable because it has early art from Robert Liefeldman. And I think this is one of the only Spider-Man issues he ever drew. And there's that woman again, she's very pretty, I like her a lot. And Spider-Man, he is taking photos for the Daily Planet. And She-Hulk, she is there. And there's that woman again. And there's Abomination. Robert Liefeldman, he doesn't draw that good at Mary Jane. And Spider-Man and She-Hulk, they team up to fight the Abomination. And what happens is, during the fight, the She-Hulk gets knocked out. And when she's knocked out, Gore shows up. He brands her with the Serpent's brand. So she is like the first bride of the Serpent God. That is an important development. And we continue on with the fight, and eventually they... Oh, I forgot she was in this. Madam Hydra, I really fancy her as well. She is beautiful. I mean, look at her. I love her. And, yeah, they beat the Abomination, but She-Hulk has been branded. Then we are on to the Peacemaker, teaming up with Moon Man. And this is kind of like where the first main, kind of like, the Act 1 story begins. What's happening is, I'll go back. Madam Hydra, oh, I forgot how pretty she was. She has set up, she's working for she's working for Gore and the other woman. She has set up what's meant to be a drug rehab facility, but what it really is, she is injecting people with a serum that transforms them into Serpent men. And this actually spins out of a plotline from Mark Griswold's Captain America, where Madam Hydra, she was trying to take over Washington by transforming everyone into Serpent men. So it's quite clever that for this crossover, they've referred back to that, and they've realised that they can use that in this crossover. The Peacemaker, he gets wind of it. There's a person, he's slowly becoming a Serpent man because he's been given the serum. And the Peacemaker is fighting criminals and stuff, and some of them turn out to be, like, he learns about the supposed rehab that's really a front for the evil Serpent people. So does Moon Man, and they go and they investigate, and there's Madam Hydra again. She is beautiful. She is like perfect. And the Peacemaker, he actually gets infected with the serum, and he starts morphing into a serpent. Oh god, look at her there. She's got her legs around. I'm like, oh, she's lovely. I fucking love her. And then Peacemaker and Moon Man have to have a fight, and during the fight he kind of sweats the serum out and he's normal again. And then we get to another issue of Spider-Man. This one has got Cloak and Dagger in it. And this one is continuing on the story about that rehab centre. So it's good when the crossover does this, where it's actually a continuing story, because the first 3 or 4 parts, they were kind of like standalone stories with very little... the first one introduced the baddie. The second one kind of just... it was kind of just an Iron Man story with like 1 or 2 pages that were important. The Excellent Men one is fucking awful. There's nothing of any value in that whatsoever. The first Spider-Man one, that one actually did set up the rehab at the very end, and it did have She-Hulk getting branded, so that one is important. And these 2 are about this rehab, and that's kind of like the main plot of Act 1. Spider-Man is investigating it now, and Cloak from Cloak and Dagger, he is investigating it too, and there's Gore there, he's a baddie. And basically they go into it's kind of like the Peacemaker story again. They just investigate, but this time there's a Serpent man there with a sword. Ooh, he looks nasty. And what happens in this one is, by the end, there you can see a man transforming into a serpent, and Spider-Man's like, oh my god. But what happens at the end is, Spider-Man actually gets captured by them, and he gets infected with the serum. The next one is Daredevil, and this is continuing straight on from the last one. It's got Spider-Man in it, and this introduces Doctor Strange to the main story. And this is the rehab here. It's called Save Our Society Chemical Dependence Treatment Center. So if you are suffering from drug addiction or stuff like that, don't go to this place, because they are going to transform you into a Serpent man. Because the idea is, when the Serpent God comes to Earth, all of humanity should be replaced with these horrible serpent men that he rules over. I probably should have mentioned that a bit earlier. And this one, Daredevil, he is going to investigate the rehab, probably hoping there's children there, the fucking sick pervert that he is. And there's Madam Hydra again. I really fancy her. I mean, she's lovely, isn't she? And he gets Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange is wearing an eye patch because I think he's like a fan of Nick Fury or something. And they go to investigate. Oh, there's Madam Hydra again. I keep forgetting how much I fancy her. And then Spider-Man, he's transforming into he's kind of halfway into a serpent, so he fights Daredevil, while Doctor Strange, he fights this evil serpent thing. And by the end, they manage to reverse all the serum effects and close, like, the rehab is exposed, so they get to close it down. And that is kind of like the end of Act 1 of Atlantis Attacks. We don't have anything more about the rehab. That was kind of like the first part of the story. Now we're on to Act 2, which is the Atlantis Attacks element, with the Seamen invading the surface world. And this is an issue of Avengers. And as you can see from the cover, there is loads of Avengers in this one. And the sad thing is, this story is not very good. There is Gore, and there's that woman. Oh god, she is beautiful though. This one is basically just the Avengers. They're fighting Seamen across America. And there's the Avengers there: Captain America, Kazar, She-Hulk, the original Human Torch, Thor, played by Chris Hemsworth, and there's Katy Perry again. I fancy her as well, actually. And they're talking about the Seamen invading, and they're really, oh, there's Madam Hydra again. I keep forgetting. I really fancy her, I really do. What's happening is they've made the big serpent crown, and all the people that wore the old serpent crown, they can feel it. Like the Thing, he wore it for a while. He feels weak, and he drops his exercise equipment. Madam Hydra wore it, and she looks a bit like turned on by the feeling. Charlotte Witch, she wore it, and she nearly faints. Kazar wore it, and he's feeling a bit ill. And another thing about the story, I don't know why they didn't make Madam Hydra one of the Serpent's brides. I mean, that would make sense. She would happily be the Serpent's bride. And I'll tell you what, if I was the evil Serpent God, I'd love to have that as my bride. She's fucking gorgeous. And then what happens? Oh, I forgot to mention in the Cloak and Dagger one, Dagger, she gets branded by the thingy. They call in all the old Avengers. You've got Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Girl, and Thing from the Fantastic Four. You've got Captain Marbles there, Monica Rambeau, the real one, Captain Marbles, the real one, the Hulk. You've got Scarlett Johansson there, Hawkeye from MASH, Wonder Man, that was Wonder Woman when he transitioned into being a he. That is Division, that is Charlotte Witch, that is Cold Tiger, that is Iron Man, and those were the ones we saw before. And you can see them all huddled over a desk there, but I've just noticed a huge, a good example of how bad this issue is. It's very bad art, it's very bad story, right? We've got that there, all the members there, right? There we see them all there, but suddenly there's ones we haven't seen there. Like, we never saw Cheetah, we never saw the Flash Gordon man. They're nowhere on that one or the one before. That is, I hadn't noticed that before. That makes this one even worse. I wonder if there's any other we didn't see. Her there, Chelsea Kane's Mockingbird. She's not there or on the page before. Wow, this is really bad. Yeah, as I said, this issue is awful. It's just a bunch of heroes fighting Seamen. I mean, if that's the part of the story you're hoping for, I suppose you'd like this. Well, it's not even that well written. A good example of that is coming up, actually. They're fighting the Seaman here, and what happens is they're losing the fight against it. And then out of nowhere, the beautiful bald lady, Moondragon, I fancy her as well, actually. This comic is full of people I fancy. And she just shows out of nowhere with Dickie Jones, and she uses Dickie Jones's latent psionic powers to just halt the war. This is a reference to the Kree-Skrull War, which ended with Dickie Jones tapping into his unused enormous potential power to halt the war by freezing everyone in their tracks. And here, it's just like an arsepuller that comes out of nowhere. He stops the war, but he doesn't stop the war. This whole sequence is not referred to again in the whole thing, and it's a fucking worthless. I do fancy her though. And then we've got some more boring fights with the Seamen. This is a bad issue. Then we are on to this starts a little kind of like a little subplot to this act with the New Mutants. This is just before they became the X-Force. There's Cannonballs. He is my favourite one. I probably won't cover this story all that much. It's fine for what it is. It is about this trumpet. They find this trumpet under the sea that when you blow it, it summons this big monster thing. And they fight the monster and then they send it home. And, there's Cyclist. he's cool. He's my favourite Excellent Men. And then we have got another issue of the New Mutants. Now, this is when they pretty much became X-Force. This was Robert Liefeldman's first issue on the New Mutants. So this is like the start of X-Force. There's Cannonballs. There is Seagirl. She's not actually a member of the X-Force. She is a new warrior. And there is Richter. He is gay. There is Boom Boom. She isn't gay. There's Wolfsbane. She has the haircut of a gay, but she isn't. There's Sunspot, and there's the annoying robot, and there's that trumpet again. And what's happening in this one is Gore and this woman, really, really lovely. I love her. They've decided they want to get the trumpet to summon the monster to attack the surface world, so they have more sacrifices for the Serpent God. And there's Richter, some classic Robert Liefeldman art. And I'm going to kind of skip over this one as well. The baddies, they get the trumpet, and there you can see he blows on it and summons a monster, but the X-Force, they fight it off. It's kind of a two-part little story about using New Mutants and X-Force. It's fine. And then we've got this. This is, I'm not sure what this is from. This is like a backup story and something. It's called There Are No Wire Hangers Underwater, which is actually about her. She is the daughter of the new ruler of the Seamen, and the ruler of the Seamen didn't want her. He wanted to have her like aborted. So there are no wire hangers underwater. That is a really insensitive like title about like back alley abortions with like coat hangers and stuff. It's just terrible, that. This story, I suppose it's fine for this. It gives a bit more depth to her, and she gets branded as one of the wives for the Serpent God. Then we've got another Excellent Men, and this one's a lot better than the other one, but unfortunately, it only stars 2 Excellent Men, and the 2 worst Excellent Men. The Whore and the Smurf Man. This one, I'll just skip this one again. She is captured by the Seamen, and the Seaman, the ruler, wants to marry her, and she'll probably be up for it because she's a fucking whore. And then what happens is there's a fight, and then Gore shows up, and he's like, the whore is dying. He's like, I can save her life if you let me take her. And it's another one of them classic Marvel dilemmas where the Smurf's like, well, I've got to do this or she'll die. So now he has got another bride for the Serpent God. And then we're on to this. This is kind of like the end of Act 2 of the story. This is kind of like the big battle between the surface world and the Seamen. It's an issue of Spider-Man, but it's got a Fantastic Force in as well. I'll just quickly go over this. There's that monster again. They summon it with the trumpet. And this is a good little issue, to be honest. This is another one that will really satisfy you if you're into the idea of the Seamen attacking the surface world. It's good. And then we start, this is where the story really picks up in my opinion. Act 3. This is all about Gore and the Serpent God. This is an issue of Avengers. It is very good. He has got all 7 of the brides now, and he is getting ready to summon a monster. So the Avengers, they're trying to find She-Hulk and Invisible Girl and the others that have gone, Charlotte Witch, the others that are other members that have gone missing. And the thing is, to find She-Hulk, but they realise she's like under the control of Gore and the Serpent people. So they let her go and follow her back to the base, but they're too late because Gore is already summoned the big evil Serpent God, and it's the age of humankind is forever at an end. That's a good use of a double splash page in my opinion. Then we're on to this, an issue of 4, but it's really just another issue of Avengers because they've got 4, Kazar, The Thing, Doctor Strange. This is about them fighting the evil Serpent God. There's Madam Hydra again. I forgot how much I fancied her. And there's a Serpent God, they go to fight the Serpent God, and they go into the Serpent God's home dimension. Really good little bit of art there, visual, breaking through the dimensional barriers. And there's if you have a fear of snakes, you'll be happy because inside his dimension he is like an inverted horrific monster. But if you have a fear of body horror, this isn't for you. And it's the whole issue is just about them fighting the big baddie, and really it's about Thor and Kazar and Doctor Strange fighting the big baddie, because the Thing, the only valuable thing he does is he stops Kazar from falling off into the abyss. Ultimately, they manage to beat the big big serpent god, and now all they've got left to do is to save the brides, which takes us to the final part, Fantastic Force. The Avengers and Fantastic Force team up. And there we have got Kazar again. There's Captain Marvels, the real one, Monica Rambeau. And they're going after Gore and a woman. And her hair has grown over the course of the story. Like, it started off quite short, quite punky, and now it's getting sort of Marge Simpson. I still like her either way. She's very pretty. I like her a lot. And this one really is mostly a Fantastic Four story once they get there. And the Seaman, he comes back from the dead, and he gets to kind of like win the big fight with the woman that I fancy a lot. And they save the brides, and Seagirl shows up to help. And they defeat Gore, and all is happy again. The brides are free from the Serpent God's influence, and it's a happy ending. Then we get on to the bonuses. I won't cover these too much. We've got this, the Saga of the Serpent Crown. This is quite a long, it's a history of the Serpent Crown written by Mark Griswold. It's very informative. It would be good at the start of the book, but the problem is the whole thing ends with a spoiler for the whole crossover. And there's Kazar again. He's part of the history of the Serpent Crown. It's quite good. This is got art by Mark Bagley. And then we've got some more, an advert for Atlantis Attacks, this little humour strip here, a poster from the X-Force one. There is a Marvel Handbook entry for the Serpent God, and there is the cover process for the cover, and there's a cover again. Honestly, this story is a mixed bag, obviously, and but I think the core story, Act 3, is really good. Act 2 is kind of, it's okay. There's a lot of rubbish in it. Act 1 is probably the worst. It's really uneven, and that fucking Excellent Man issue is dreadful. I would say get this, but just kind of like pick which ones you want to read. Like, if you hold on the back, it shows all the issues, and I'll tell you which ones to read. Right, Silver Surfman, read that one. Iron Man, I suppose you've got to read that one, because it sets up that Seaman is dead and that they're sacrificing the Seamen in the war. Avengers, that one's fine. Nothing important, it's just a nice little scene. Skip, Marvel Comics Presents. That is the annoying Christian story. I would read that one, but I'd bring it to after the Avengers one. Skip that one like the plague. If you want to read about the rehab centre thing, read that one. Actually, you've got to read these because the brides get caught. Read that one, read that one, read that one, read that one. That is awful, but I suppose you've got to read that one. You can skip that, you can skip that. You've got to read that one. I suppose you've got to read that one. You've got to read that one, and you've got to read that one. And they've actually forgotten the Fantastic Force one at the back there. And actually, while I'm on the things they have forgotten something from this collection. There's another backup story in one of the Avengers annuals that has it has two Avengers. They are going in search of Gore and the Serpent people, but what happens is they find this island which is a base of the High Evolutionary, which is a reference to the crossover from the year before. But that scene isn't in this, and it's not in the Evolutionary War omnibus either. So it's a shame, because that's part of the story as well. There is also an issue of What If, a really good issue of What If about Atlantis Attacks, and that would be really good to have in this. Basically, it's what happens if the Serpent God came to Earth and he wasn't defeated by Thor, Kazar and Doctor Strange. But I quite like this story. I like what they were going for, especially in Act 3. I think that is fun. I think the history of the Serpent Crown, that's actually, I didn't really cover it, but that is a really good little bit, because as I said before, I really like Mark Griswold, and this story goes back to like the very start of the Marvel Universe with the Celestials and stuff like that. And we get a lot about the history of the Seamen. We get retellings of classic Avengers stories. We get the Justice League when they were wearing the Serpent Crown. We get, there's Captain Stingray. We get a story about when other people were wearing the crown. And it's good, this. We get this Kazar story where Kazar wore the crown. It is a mixed bag, but I recommend it. It is good. I like it. It's not perfect, but I could see I can see potential in it. I think it could have been a lot better. I rate it 7 thumbs up.